What's up, guys? Welcome back to Primetime Carolina, where today we're going to discuss the Carolina Panthers almost win against the Atlanta Falcons. I say almost, unfortunately. The Carolina Panthers, in almost a comeback Hail Mary fashion, get ready to take care of the Atlanta Falcons, take the division lead in Atlanta. They don't get the job done, unfortunately, due to a couple mistakes there at the end. What's going on, fellas? I got my co-host Dave, and we got our buddy Cam with us today. What's going on, fellas?
How you doing?
Living an eternal demise as a Panthers fan, man.
Most definitely.
It's a tough life, man.
No doubt.
That was painful.
Take some strong men to do it, and that's why we do it, so the others don't have to.
It's very true. Very true. So, yeah, this game, I got to say, even though we lost, this was probably the most exciting Panthers game I've watched in quite a while. There was a lot of scoring, something we have not seen this year at all. Dante Foreman, man, looking like a beast. DJ Moore finally having his come-out game of the year. You know, PJ Walker making a couple of throws here and there. The defense struggled a little bit. But at the end of the day, it all came down to the last 40 seconds of this game. Panthers get the ball back. You think there's no chance. All of a sudden, PJ Walker rolls out to the left, throws a 60-yard bomb to DJ Moore, double covered in the back of the end zone. He catches it. The Panthers are going to win the game. All of a sudden, 15-yard penalty. DJ Moore took his helmet off. Eddie, not so dinero Pinero, misses the extra point. The Panthers go to overtime. And from then on, it was history. He misses another kick. The Panthers fall to the Falcons. I haven't been this pissed off in quite a while for being a 2-6 football team. I'll tell you what, guys. What did you think of the ending of this game?
I'll let you take it first, Cameron.
Well, I thought it was very filled with action, a lot of adrenaline. I feel like that PJ Walker was on his last leg when he made that throw. He did the best he could, and who did you have on the receiving end? It was DJ Moore in front of two defenders, outran him. Hell of a catch, probably one that you'll see on TV for the next 30 years. But as far as people saying it's his fault for the celebration, it's not his fault. You know, that was nothing but raw emotion. Yes, it was a boneheaded, dumb penalty, but we play in the no-fun league. So, you know, you got a kicker who shanks a chip shot, not one time, but twice. But we'll get to that. Go ahead, Dave.
Just a roller coaster of emotions, man. That's the only way to describe it. For a long time, it looked like we had a good handle on this game. There at the end, we kind of gave it away. Then by some miracle, we scored a touchdown with an opportunity to take the lead, and can't trust kickers, man. Can't trust kickers. And by the way, I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but there's been a bunch of, reports about rules analysts saying that shouldn't have been a penalty because he didn't take his helmet off until he was technically off the field. He was out of the back of the end zone on the white lines instead of in the end zone, which counts as out of bounds. So it shouldn't have even been a penalty, which, you know, makes it hurt twice as much. But yeah, man, at least it was a fun game, man. I mean, we have had some boring ass games to watch here as Panthers fans here recently this year. Just unwatchable football. Your eyes are bleeding the whole time. Matt Rule's out there with his big, dumb, incompetent self looking like stupid Mr. Potato Head looking ass. And so I mean, you know, it was good to have, like, I actually told Cameron this on Sunday. It was almost nostalgic. It felt like a good old fashioned Panthers heartbreak instead of these beatdowns we're used to getting. It was like, damn, I haven't felt this kind of heartache in a while. It's been a long time since we blew a Sunday that bad. So it was a very familiar feeling. It almost felt good, though, in a really, really weird, terrible way. It felt like we were back. We're not winning, but we're back to being really, really close and then disappointing at the end. Like, that's Panther football. That's what I remember. That's that deep pain in your chest that we've grown so accustomed to over the years.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's actually a really an interesting point, but I do agree with that. I think anyone that blames DJ Moore for the game or for this call should pack up their stuff and leave. Um, like Cam said, this is the no fun league. Listen, I understand that you can't take your helmet off, but in a play like that in a divisional game, with 40 seconds left in the game, it's nothing but raw emotion. I mean, the guy is fired up. The players are excited. I mean, that's an exciting play. And to have a 15-yard penalty for something as minuscule with that, I mean, I could understand if he was in the middle of the field, maybe. The guy's literally quite in the back of the end zone, out of the end zone, taking his helmet off. He's so excited. I mean, can you blame the guy? What a joke of a penalty. And if you're going to call it, be consistent, which the NFL never does. I've watched so many games this past year where people's helmets have come off numerous times in the middle of the field with no flags and nothing's happened. So I don't blame DJ Moore. I blame the penalties against us and that we drew. And he had two chances. You miss once, okay. You have another time in overtime to seal the deal and win the game, and you miss it again. I'm sorry. I think a bulk of the loss comes down to him. In games, you're going to have penalties. Your defense isn't going to play great every game. You got a chance twice to win the game. You mess up. I blame him, man. I really do. I'm sorry. I hate to do it to him, but that's how I feel.
A couple instances, kind of going off what you were saying about the helmets coming off. Somebody went back and looked at the Bucks game last week. Brian Burns took his helmet off as he was coming off the field after his sack on Tom Brady, or it might have been one of the fourth down stops. I don't remember where it was exactly in the game, but he took his helmet off coming off the game, no penalty. You look at the other game this week with Terry McLaurin for Washington. He caught a ball at the 1 yard line. Now, I understand this circumstance was different because I pointed this out and people jumped all over me for it, but I understand it was different because they called a timeout. But if you're talking about purely what they did, DJ Moore took off his field, started yelling at the fans, whatever. McLaurin took off his helmet, started walking back towards the 50-yard lines, talking trash to every player he saw on the opposing team. So, I mean, it just seems so silly when something's so much more egregiously, obviously unsportsmanlike, but because of a weird technicality of them calling a timeout, it's okay. But when DJ Moore does it and affects nobody, it's a penalty that changes the course of the entire game.
Yeah, like I mean, really, I think it's more of the celebration itself instead of the helmet rule. Like it's just really, I think it depends on the ref. Honestly, God, I mean, I think that's what it boils down to. I mean, because he took off his helmet, threw it down, jumped up there, and I guess the ref or the referee crew, the official crew, considered it taunting in a way.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if the jumping in the stands had anything to do with it, really. I did wonder the same thing, but at the same time, I don't know how that could be a penalty when, like, the Lambeau Leap's been a thing for, like, 1,000 years. So,
Yeah,
like, why isn't that a penalty? You know what I mean?
Right.
Having it, I can understand if this was the first, second, or third quarter in the game where there's still a lot to play. But when it's like 20 seconds left in the game, not even, and you make an incredible play like that, it's not like the guy went midfield, went Terrell
right
in the middle of the Cowboys logo. I mean, I don't want to blame the loss on the refs because there's a lot of things that we could have done better, obviously, but it's really tough to have a moment like that. And I guess this is the best loss possible. It depends on what category you're in. If you're the type of fan that wants to tank and lose and get a good draft pick, or you're the type of fan that wants to be competitive and win. You almost had that opportunity to win. It was a competitive game, but you also lost. You're 2-6. You have the number 2 pick in the draft at this moment. So there's some good and some bad there. But that's the most fired up I've been about a game. I wanted to win this game. And we just saw this past Monday night, the Bengals got absolutely smoked by the Browns. So we could be going into this game this Sunday with a lot of momentum if we would have won.
Yeah. And it's tough. It's tough because DJ Moore, man, that's the catch of his life, so far. So he's gonna have to make a hell of a play in the future to ever top that. So we'll see what happens. But
I will say this.
Go ahead.
I don't want to. I don't want to hang this all the way on the kicker. Yeah, he missed 2 field goals. Okay, he did. He shanked them both. But the way I see it is, we can't ever have a complete team.
Mm-hmm. Now I agree
100%. Is producing. The defense is giving up 300 yards. Like, not that much, but I'm just figuratively, that's what I'm saying. It's the fact of the matter is there were several things and several keys and the secondary getting smoked on routes that led to ultimately the loss on this game.
How about this, Cameron? How about 400 yards for Atlanta in that game? So yeah, no, but that's exactly the right take on this game. It's like that's just the Panthers' MO, man. As soon as one or two units are playing well, the other one can't get it done. Or in this case, the offense was the only unit playing well. Special teams came up short, obviously, with the kicking game. Defense comes up short. Defense allowed 3 points in the first half, right? Wasn't it 10-7 at halftime?
Yeah.
Something like, I think it was 10 to, where's the box score? I don't know. I can't remember exactly, but, or was it 14-10? Either way, it was
14-10 because they had that pick six, but the defense
allowed 7 points, right? So the defense allows 7 points in the first half. Atlanta ends up with 37 points. I mean, as soon as the offense gets it going, the defense can't stop anybody. It's like, dude, we got to play a full team game or we're not winning any games here. We're not beating anybody. And in a bad division, we're right in it. We're right in it. Even though we're 2-6 and in last place in the division, we're 2 games out of first place. So, I mean, if they want to make a season out of this, there's still plenty of time to do so, but you got to start playing complete games. You got to start playing as a team. You can't play depending on the offense or depending on the defense.
Yeah, really frustrating. And for the first game all year where the offense actually looks competent, the defense completely shits the bed. This was definitely a good game for the trade Brian Burns crowd because he was non-existent. I am not one of those people. There are people that say, hey, this game, this is why you should have traded Brian Burns. He's not all that good. I'm not going to go that far, but there are people that said that. Derek Brown had himself a really good game. I will say that. But, I mean, a lot of bad penalties against us, lack of pass rush, a couple of things going on. But it just the defense itself probably played their worst game of the season, I would say.
Yeah, I probably agree with that. I think you wouldn't expect Atlanta's offense to be as – it can be difficult to stop because, I wasn't expecting to see as much of that triple option stuff as I saw. They really utilize Marcus Mariota in a way that's difficult for a defense to account for both his arms and his legs. And they did a good job of giving him, safety blankets to throw to when there was nothing downfield, especially on the outsides. You saw that a lot where the wide receivers would carry the Panthers zone deep down the field, and then someone would just be standing there on the sidelines by themselves because the corners had completely vacated that side of the field. We saw that numerous times. There was one I think it was Kyle Pitts was standing right there. He caught it and he ran for like 20 yards, and there was just nobody around him. But, yeah, man, it's tough. It's tough to see the defense that's played so well all year just completely disappear in the second half. But shout out to the offense.
Sorry, man. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
No,
you're good.
Man, like, another thing I've noticed too is that, like, with the secondary, they'll come up for a blitz or the safeties will come up and they'll be passing. But next thing you know, they're getting burnt in coverage because they're not paying attention to where the ball's at. They're looking for the run.
Yeah, and I think Atlanta is a team that'll do that to you because, like I said, they run so much that triple option. The quarterback can run. I think it's going to get defensive backs' eyes in the backfield and suck them up a little bit. And I think we saw a little bit of that for sure in this game. And what's up with Kyle Pitts was it seemed like he was uncovered that whole game, which was what it's like he's their whole offense, he's their only real weapon on offense. We draft J.C. Horn. You think J.C. Horn's going to be, the Kyle Pitts antidote for the next 10 years. And he barely covered them all. And I understand, one's a tight end technically, but he's really more of a receiver. We've got one of the best lockdown corners in the NFL on our side of the ball. And it seemed like that's the best weapon they have on offense. Why would you not use one of your star defensive players to take him away? I was a little perplexed by that, but I don't know. Did you guys notice?
Yeah, Kyle Pitts, I have him on a fantasy team. He's done basically nothing all year.
Yeah.
Until this game.
Same here. So I feel you.
That was really frustrating, primarily against us. But yeah, they. One thing I will say is that I've seen this in the NFL in general, not just the Panthers, but I don't know what it is with NFL defenses. They love to give receivers 10-yard cushions every play. I understand not every corner is a man corner, but even Jonathan Vilma, who is I hope he sees this video, is an absolutely horrendous commentator. One of the worst I've ever seen in my life. But even he called it out during the game. He said, why are they giving so much cushion to these receivers? What happened to being 5-7 yards off the ball? Now you're automatically giving guys 8-10 yards off the ball. That's almost a first down every time. I don't understand it. I guess that's why I'm not an NFL coordinator, I guess. But I don't know. It's the defense was very frustrating, giving up penalties or giving up, chunk plays. And Damiere Byrd, I loved him when he was in Carolina. He looked great. He had a really good game. And Kyle Pitts uncovered, and we really struggled against that RPO. This is really the first time we've went against that all year. And Marcus Mariota looked like, the guy that was the number 2 pick in the draft a couple years ago. He looked pretty solid. And I thought against a defense like ours, we were going to make him pay, and we didn't really do that.
I'm glad you brought up Damiere Byrd because it just reminded me of something. The officiating during the game, I understand there were bad calls against us, and that's one thing. But on that touchdown Damiere Byrd scored, I can't remember if it was for the lead or the tie at the end of the game, that one that he caught and ran 30 yards past the whole defense.
That was for the lead.
For the lead. Okay, so on that play, the right tackle, I believe it was, jumped way early. Then no. The left tackle jumped way early. The right tackle held Brian Burns until he tackled him to the ground. And neither penalty was called, obviously, because the touchdown counted. But that was not the only instance. I counted at least 5 times during that game I saw an offensive tackle jump early. And it felt like it was even more than that. It was the whole game. These tackles were moving early. And it was like, dude, am I like coked out or something right now? Why am I like seeing this and nobody else is? I could not believe it was the whole game and the refs did not call it.
You weren't the only one. This happened. Listen, if you go and look at the penalties called, they actually were pretty evenly matched. But in terms of penalties that weren't called, Atlanta's offensive line jumped so many times when the ball was snapped. It was insane. And I don't understand this, how refs continually get things wrong and miss things, and they're never held responsible for anything.
Well, you combine that with what they did at the end of the game with DJ Moore, and it's like, how are we supposed to? And this was a game that it felt like we dominated. You know what I mean? And it was like we come out on the losing end, and you hate to point at the ref, but it's like there was a lot of bad officiating in this game, and it ultimately cost us the game.
Here's what I want to know. I want to know where the hell was Damiere Byrd when he played for us?
Making butt catches.
I was going to say, squeezing his little ass in the back of the end zone. That's the only thing I remember. That's the only Damiere Byrd memory I think I have.
Right. I mean, it's like it just
Yeah.
reminded me of like the moment I had thinking about Ted Ginn.
But how many
I mean-
times has a Panthers player left Carolina and then become the best form of themselves?
A
I mean, we
million.
see that all the time, so
A
it
million.
shouldn't be a surprise.
Unfortunately, that is true. But yeah, there was a lot of missed calls in this game, a lot of bad calls on both sides. I mean, NFL officiating continues to get worse and worse every year. Nothing seems to be done. We'll go on to something. Think about PJ Walker in this game. I'll go ahead and say a quick note. I think he had actually a pretty decent game. That's the longest. Apparently, that throw has been the longest throw in Panthers since 2006. That's what. That's. And I don't think he had the best game. I do understand the pick six debacle. I think that just was him just not being aware of the situation going. There was also a good play on Atlanta's end. I'll give him that. But other than that one play there, I mean, I think he actually had a really good game. I mean, he made a couple throws here and there that we have not seen quarterback make in a long time on this team. And, he delivered a couple balls. DJ Moore, if he wouldn't have caught that pass, his last result in that game would have been that drop fourth down pass that he put right in the bread that he dropped. I'm not saying
throw.
It was. And I'm not going to say PJ Walker is the long-term answer because I don't think that, but I will say this. He had a really, really nice game, and I'm going to give hats off to him for that. He did really, really well, aside from that pick.
I mean, I will say this. As far as that throw goes, any other team, anybody, give or take, they would have never let DJ Moore in front of him. So PJ Walker, without DJ Moore,
you could definitely make the argument that throw was the benefit of a bad defense with a banged up secondary.
Right. I mean, I'm not trying to be off topic here. I'm just, I don't know. Like, I don't think he's the long-term answer either, but he played well enough to me that I feel like he could be the starter for the rest of the season.
I think that throw was so damn beautiful, and such a moment that it created that people kind of forget that before that, the game PJ Walker was having was pretty good, not great. By the end of it, you did have people talking about how he could be the future, which, look, love you, PJ. That is asinine. That is an insane talking point, and I'm not even going to entertain it. Love PJ. He is not a franchise quarterback. And I want to get more into that in a second, but just to talk about this game for a second, I mean, hats off to PJ. Hats off to the offense as a whole. I thought they all played really well. Deontay Foreman, obviously 3 touchdowns, ran the rock like a damn beast. Then you had DJ Moore, had his best game of the career of the season. Might have been his best game of his career. He had like 170 yards or something. I saw in the last 2 games, DJ Moore has more yards than he had all season up until that point. So obviously things are working well for him. Terrace Marshall, love seeing him get involved. I think he's really going to emerge here as a legitimate starting wide receiver for us. I think he's got a ton of potential. I'm so excited to see what he can do. The offensive line is moving people around. Offensive line is playing fantastic football right now. Like, we have not seen offensive line play this good probably since before the Cam Newton era.
Hats off to the rookie.
Wilkes is rallying the crew. Wilkes is rallying the troops. I'm thrilled with the job he's done. I know he's not the young offensive mind that Tepper's looking for, but I think his name's Jeremy Igo or something. I think he's like a photographer or something.
He runs Carolina Huddle, the website I frequent.
He made a great point on Twitter. He said that the Panthers have a much better shot at hiring a worse coach than they do at hiring a better coach if they decide to move on from Steve Wilkes. And I think that is, hitting the nail on the head. That is exactly right. I think, you might go out and find a better coach, but the chances of you going to get a coach and it being a miss is a much higher probability, especially if you're talking about one of these young, inexperienced guys who's an offensive coordinator and you want to turn him into a first-time head coach. It's a recipe for disaster a lot of the times because these guys can't make that step. Even in Miami right now, things aren't going as well as they were at the beginning of the year. But that's another note. What? I lost my train of thought. Oh, PJ Walker. That's what I wanted to come back to. Someone made the point to me. So my talking point was this team reminds me quite a bit of the 2002, 2003 Panthers. Young defense, a lot of high draft picks, a lot of potential there. They're starting to get real good at running the ball, downhill, physical football team. Two good receivers on the outside, assuming Terrace Marshall pans out. And a kicker who chokes when it matters. No, I'm just kidding. But but I said, the only thing this team's missing is a quarterback. And they brought up PJ Walker, and I said, no, PJ Walker is not an NFL quarterback. And they said, well, Jake Delhomme wasn't an NFL quarterback either before he got this job. And I said, well, that's a great point, but here's why it's also a really bad point. That was an egregious decision giving Jake Delhomme that contract when the Panthers did. We all love Jake Delhomme. I love Jake Delhomme. That was my childhood quarterback. But if we're being honest with ourselves and we're not speaking off of pure emotion, the Panthers could have done a lot better than Jake Delhomme. They could have given a long-term contract to someone else. In 2005, the Panthers passed on Aaron Rodgers. You don't think Aaron Rodgers could have come in here with that defense and Steve Smith and Muhsin Muhammad and won a couple of rings? Just because we've settled in the past and we found a hometown hero that we liked and we put him in the radio booth to call games in 2020 doesn't mean we need to keep going back to that well. Doesn't mean we need to keep looking for hidden gems that are undrafted free agents. If you can go get a top tier quarterback prospect, you do it. You don't bank on your undrafted quarterback being the next Jake Delhomme, Kurt Warner. And I'll step off my soapbox.
I mean, what's the chance of like you said, what's the chances of us finding a Tom Brady as far as that low in the draft or like Jake Delhomme? It's not gonna, they need to draft and they need to go get a quarterback and develop him. Yes, it's going to take years. Yes, it's not going to happen overnight, but this is what has to be done in order for us to get anywhere. The number one answer to a football team in general is a quarterback. And if you don't have that, you might as well kiss your ass goodbye. Because, I mean, there's nothing else. I look at it this way. He has the reins to the buggy. If he's steering off the road, they're going to crash. And that's just how I see it. So they have to be smart, draft right, make a intelligent decision while drafting, and get someone who they really believe, truly believe, that is going to be great. And just pray to God it doesn't pan out like Jimmy Clausen.
I hope not, but I would say, yeah, I agree with you guys. And I think people are just getting a little carried away with the PJ talk. I mean, let's say he starts the rest of the year as a complete dumpster fire. Then what are we talking about? He had one really good game, and then, we didn't even win. I think at the end of the day, you could very well stumble upon a good backup quarterback in the league just fine. You need those guys. But I do think the Panthers are in a position where they likely will be in a position where they can take a quarterback. And this quarterback class is so deep. I'm not saying every quarterback is going to be great, but this class is deep enough where the Panthers will have a shot to get a guy that they like and that they can try to develop. And if PJ just completely shines the rest of the year, you never know. But I'm not going to hang my hat on that and say, oh, well, the Panthers are going to go into the year with PJ Walker and Matt Corral at quarterback. The Panthers need a quarterback, and we'll see what happens. So, you're in a good spot where you got a guy that can do some things. At worst comes to worst, he could be a very solid NFL backup, which you need.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to entertain the idea until the offseason. But I think after these last two games, people are getting a little excited about PJ Walker because he has played, much better than anything we've seen in the last couple of years, which is kind of pathetic, but it is what it is at this point. So obviously we're going to put that behind us. Here this weekend, the Carolina Panthers are going to face the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are a team with a bad offensive line and a star receiver who's missing some time. How do we think the Panthers are going to match up? Seems like we're going to have a shot to get after Joe Burrow and put him on ice. Joe Burrow, put him on ice.
As much as I really want to get behind the Panthers getting after this offensive line, I have yet to see a game where we've completely taken advantage of a bad offensive line. Yes, I think Brian Burns will get his sack and a half. But from Gross Matos, I don't think he has a sack all year. And if he has, it's probably him just laying on top of someone at the end of a play. I think that Derek Brown has had a fantastic year, but he's not really a sack guy. He's more of a run stuffer and kind of blows stuff up. But Panthers taking advantage of this poor offensive line like they should, I think we'll have a better game on the defensive line. But last week we had a game against a really, really bad secondary, and the Panthers really struggled to move the ball in the air the first half of the game. Like have. I think this is a good matchup. I don't think the Bengals are all that good this year. But, it depends. If we can get after the quarterback and really, force some turnovers, then I could be excited. But I don't know how we set a lot of pressure. I feel like we're still not getting there completely. And it's one of the knocks on our defense. We've only got one guy that can successfully rush the passer, unfortunately.
I think you make some fair points. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Honestly, I think that the Bengals are a reflection of 2015 Panthers. They go to the Super Bowl, they lose, and the next year they have a hangover, and that's just what happens. But I want to get behind the Panthers. I hope that they can do something, but that defensive line cannot get a decent push and pressure around that quarterback, and it's either Luvu or Brian Burns chasing them down every play.
Yep.
Every play.
Yeah, definitely need to send the blitz in this one and just try to get after Joe Burrow as much as we possibly can. I think this is a team that we actually match up with pretty well, assuming our corners come to play. Obviously, they don't have Jamar Chase, but Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins are also, very good receivers as well. So it's not like there's nobody there. But I think we're a team that is pretty similar on paper, or maybe, maybe not on paper, but we want to do the same thing the Browns want to do, and that's play defense and run the football. And the Browns just took these guys to the Woodhouse on Thursday night, playing their game, running the football. Tough nose, grind it out type of deal. So I think that's really the team we're becoming with Steve Wilkes as our head coach. I think we actually have a pretty good shot in this one because of that. I think we want to keep the ball out of the Bengals offense's hands. And when they're out there, we get after the quarterback, make them get some 3-and-outs, keep that time of possession heavily in our favor. And I think we'll have a good shot in this game.
Yeah,
I think go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good, man. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, to add to that point, I just think that this team is a new team under Wilkes. Honestly, the future looks bright to me. And the reason why I say that is because they're playing a lot better. I believe they want him as their coach, and I believe they have a more positive demeanor about them as far as playing, even though the outcome hasn't came their way. So, yeah.
That and to kind of piggyback off that, I'll talk about the Bengals in a second. But I saw someone post, I think it was on the Carolina Huddle I was reading, that this situation feels somewhat similar to last year with the Raiders, where they had their interim head coach who was like a player's coach, and they really got behind him. And those last couple of games, they played well and they made the playoffs. And then they got rid of him in favor of a young offensive-minded coach, and the Raiders are absolutely horrible this year. So this kind of feels the same way where, you got a guy they're really playing hard for and they could dump him for a young offensive-minded coach that might not necessarily work out. So that's a good point. Regarding the Bengals, I think the Panthers are going to be in this game. There's no doubt. It matters if we can get to the quarterback and we got to make some plays. The Bengals don't have their best offensive player, their best offensive weapon in Jamar Chase. If we can get to the quarterback and do what we did last week, run the football and, make some plays, I think we'll be in it. I'm not going to say we're going to win, but I think we'll have a chance. The Panthers, they're the best two weeks. I think we're definitely better than our record, but I think we'll be in it. But will we win? I'm not 100%.
Now we're better than our record. If you asked me 3 weeks ago, I said we are exactly what our record says we are, maybe worse.
If we have this team starting at the beginning of the year with this kind of coaching and momentum, there's no doubt the Panthers would be, I would say, 4-4 around that area right now. Maybe 5-4. I don't know, 5-3.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And to go off of what Cameron was just saying, it goes back to a further point that you and I have talked about several times on here. And that's just the feeling that the Panthers are really just a quarterback and a coach away. And, the jury's still out on Steve Wilks. Obviously, the guys love him. They've responded very well to him taking over. They look like a brand new team. And, the quarterback's not solved, but they have a guy who is doing well enough filling in that role and, showing some leadership. And really, God, give him some credit. P.J. Walker has made, and I'm not just talking about that Hail Mary. Other than that Hail Mary, he's made some outstanding throws in these two games. So he deserves a ton of credit, man. Like I said, I'm not going to commit by any means to him being the future of the team, but he's certainly earned, the right to be the veteran quarterback in the room moving forward when the Panthers do bring in the guy who they're going to want to run the show for the foreseeable future. And he hasn't always shown us that either. So that's another reason it's a big deal. We've seen bad PJ in the past. Last couple of weeks, yes. We've seen a much better PJ.
I feel like he's developed in some senses, but as you guys both said, I don't believe he's the long-term answer.
He looks very decisive with the ball compared to what we've seen from in the past.
Quick release.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I like about him right now is that he's getting rid of the ball and he's making wise decisions with the football.
I think the last couple of weeks have been a really good example of this. We talked about forever with Matt Rule. He would talk about running the ball and being committed to running the ball, and then we would go out and throw the ball 45 freaking times. And I think as much as he preached about running the ball, he was never about it. And I think the reason we threw the ball so much, even going back to Joe Brady, I think the reason we threw the ball so much, I think it was a Matt Rule thing. You can see once you get a coach with a different philosophy in there who's willing to grind it out, get the ugly yards, punt the ball away whenever you don't get, those first downs instead of trying to be desperate enough to pass on every play. It's making a big difference. It's paying dividends for the whole offense. And the passing game is so much prettier because now it's open. Now it's opening up the passing game that wasn't there before. And I think when we saw PJ Walker in the past, it was the same as when we saw Baker Mayfield at the beginning of this season or Sam Darnold at the end of last season. There was this over concentration on trying to throw the ball, which you can do in the Big 12, but you can't do in the NFL. And once you do that, your quarterbacks start looking bad and they start trying to force things that aren't there and they start turning the ball over. So I think a lot of this bad quarterback play probably goes back to Matt Rule, refusing to get the ugly yards and grind it out on the ground when you need to.
I think a lot of it just honestly, especially with Rule, I think a lot of it come down to he refused to accept an NFL coaching style. He used a lot of the stuff. I saw some college plays ran in that offense that he ran. And honest to God, I mean, it's not going to work here. It's just not. And it didn't. And he's gone. And great.
And the other reason I say I think it's Matt Rule is because there's been how many different offensive coordinators now? Three different offensive coordinators were under Matt Rule. And we always saw the same thing, and that was exactly what I'm talking about. An over concentration on trying to throw the ball around the field, and it just doesn't work. So I think Matt Rule had a much bigger hand in that than we ever thought.
I think McAdoo gets along with Wilkes better, to be honest with you, because it's to be real with you, the offense since McAdoo has been under Wilkes, it has been balanced. Yes, it has been more conservative, but it has been balanced, equal throwing and equal running, and the perfect mix. It's not the off tackle,
That's what I'm saying. It's like
5 plays in a row.
You see the balance there now that there's a different head coach. So whether it's Wilkes insisting on being more balanced or an offensive coordinator who doesn't have a gun to his head from his head coach and is able to do what he feels makes more sense, it's one of the two or a combination of the two.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that, the past, couple games, McAdoo has improved a lot, and God knows we were very, very hard on him. I'm not saying he's still the answer offensive coordinator for the future, but he does seem to have gotten along with Wilkes a lot better. And the offense has been much better play calling wise. You're not seeing the same old runs up the middle with the incorrect personnel and just terrible passing routes and trees and things like that. It just feels a lot more balanced, kind of like you guys were saying. You're running it and you're passing it a good amount. And we're getting other guys involved. You're seeing the emergence of Terrace Marshall, not saying he's the long-term number 2, but, you're seeing him finally come along. You're seeing Tommy Tremble get involved a little bit. You're seeing Shi Smith do a little bit here and there. So you're seeing your younger guys get in there and play and develop and have a chance and an opportunity, which is what you need, man. At this point in the season, if we don't make the playoffs, if we don't make a run, you got to evaluate your guys, because here we were early at the season talking about Terrace Marshall maybe getting cut in camp before he even made the team. Now look at him. He's probably the second best wide receiver on this football team right now.
Yeah. And you look, Terrace Marshall Jr., Deontay Foreman, Tommy Tremble, these are players who are losing snaps to Chuba Hubbard, Robbie Anderson, Ian Thomas, these guys that we would see the ball force-fed to, and we were like, what the hell is going on with this team that they feel the need to keep force-feeding the ball, or at least the snaps and opportunities to these guys? How in the world has Robbie Anderson been getting 90% of the snaps for this team over the past 3 years, especially the last 2 years, with Terrace Marshall standing on the sideline the entire time? He's clearly the better receiver. It's not even close.
It's because they went to Temple with Matt Rule.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You get damn Willy Wonka out of the factory and the Oompa Loompas follow him out. There's an analogy there. There's an analogy somewhere in there. I got to figure out what it is.
Honest to God, now I'm a 6'2", almost 400-pound dude. If I went to Temple with Matt Rule and played a wide receiver, I think when he coached the Panthers at this point, he would have put me out there wide receiver. Honest to God.
He would have sent you out there on a go route.
Yeah.
Since you're out there on he would have gave a play action fake to Chuba Hubbard. He would have had Ian Thomas block on the blind side, and he would have thrown you a bomb, a post route.
I think it'd have been either picked off or like by the time I even stepped to the 3, it'd have been done.
It would have been picked off, and you would have got your head knocked off.
Yeah, and he'd have still kept me out there.
Yeah.
So
big facts.
Oh man, but yeah, it's nice to see the emergence of some of these younger guys getting out there and playing. And Dave, you know I got to bring it up. I bring it up every time he makes a play. Your boy, Deshaun Jackson, or not Deshaun Jackson. Sorry, Dante Jackson. Sorry, out there making some plays. Again, you know, I wouldn't call it necessarily a ball hawk play.
Hey.
I would call it more just running in the ball kind of
splash plays, Tanner. Splash plays. That's all he's good for.
Listen,
he's inconsistent as shit, but he's going to make some pretty plays that are going to make people think he's good.
He's good at that, and then very good at having some sort of foot or ankle injury every game. I kid you not. Every game, there will be one situation in the game where the camera points to Dante Jackson. He's on the ground holding his ankle, and the team
and it's always after someone made a big play on him, just like it was in this game.
It's so frustrating. I don't understand how that happens really every game.
Dude, him on Kyle Pitts looked like the old Pokemon game where Pikachu just follows you around. It's like they're not even the same thing, dude. Get a bigger corner on him. I don't even really have a problem with Dante Jackson. It's just when they use him in situations like that.
The problem
Kyle Pitts and Mike Evans the last 2 weeks, he hasn't stood a chance. Mike Evans made him look like a little kid out there last week.
I mean, the thing with Dante with me is he's just always hurt. Like they blow a whistle and injury on the field. And I'm like, oh well. Who is it? Dante Jackson?
Yeah, like I said, I don't mind him. I just don't like the way he's used. He's just not a legitimate like outside corner, and that's how they insist on using him. So it's not all his fault, but
I think Keith Taylor is without a doubt the second best corner on the team.
Yeah, I mean, in that role, I think he's definitely the better option because he matches up so much better with big wide receivers. If he's the better player overall, you know, I don't know. I'd probably lean that way, but I don't know. I try not to talk about Dante Jackson because I usually don't have anything nice to say, or it comes off like I hate him because I really don't hate him. It's just like he could be utilized so much better, and he could make more plays and not get hurt so much, and everybody wins.
Forgive me if I'm not up to date, but has there been any answer on Chin? Has he come back yet? Or
not this week? I think it's going to be next week.
Next week,
but it might be. It's definitely not going to be this week. Steve Wilkes just said it today.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'd rather Chin take his time and heal up and put him back in at this point.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely not so much from a coverage perspective, but just seeing someone that can make some tackles. God knows our linebacking core has missed so many tackles this year. Shaq Thompson, man, last year I thought he finally put it together. This year, kind of looks to be back on the downtrend a little bit. He's good for a couple good pops here and there a game, but he has missed a lot of tackles this season. And that's certainly an area the Panthers can improve on. Dave, I feel like you have something to say.
Roquan Smith was just traded to the Ravens for a second-round pick, and it was either a fourth or a fifth, I think. So like a second and a fifth. Would you guys have liked to see the Panthers pull the trigger on that? I know right now we're trying to stockpile draft picks, so it's tough to see us trade some away. But you're talking about a Pro Bowl linebacker who could fill the middle.
I don't think that would have been good. They'd have been probably only able to sign him to 1 or 2 years in my opinion, and then he'd have been gone, and then they would have wasted draft picks they needed.
Do the Bears run a 4-3 or 3-4? I can't remember.
4-3 as far as I know.
Yeah,
4-3.
4-3.
I think he's got about a year left on his contract, so he's going to want a long-term extension. So I'm okay with them passing on it. But they've got a lot of draft picks. I feel like drafting good linebackers isn't as hard as it used to be, and I feel like you can find quality linebackers late in rounds. So
Luvu, that man's a fucking beast.
He has been our best linebacker.
He had a costly missed tackle in this game too, though. Which, no, I still agree with you. He's still a good player, but just that was the first thing I thought of when Tanner said that, actually. But yeah, the linebacking play has not been nearly good enough, in my opinion, this year. Especially if you want to have a really good defense. I don't know, again, if this was like a Matt Rule Big 12 philosophy, but seems like they've definitely built that defense from the outside in instead of the inside out. And we always talked about how it's really a finesse defense, which ironically is kind of what the Falcons are on offense, and they couldn't stop them this week. But I don't know. Especially if you look back in Panthers history, the best defenses we've ever had have had elite linebackers.
Yes.
And to me, if you're going to have a really good defense, that's where you need to start, in the front seven.
Yeah, 4-man rush. They need it.
Correct. And I would say no matter what happens the rest of the season, Panthers definitely, other than quarterback, I would spend that draft capital on probably another end to go along with Brian Burns, and then definitely some guys at linebacker. And maybe it's crazy to think about. As much as I would say, I would still, as much draft capital as we've put in our defense, I would still put more draft capital there, because you get a quarterback. I could see maybe getting a receiver as well, maybe free agency, but I would still invest draft capital in free agency and getting another pass rusher, and getting another linebacker, maybe another guy in the secondary. I still would do that.
I agree with you 1,000%. I just said that on Sunday. I said, you know what? I'm pretty happy with where the Panthers are on offense right now. Still some young guys that the jury's still out on a little bit, like Terrace Marshall and the running back position. Who knows if they're going to move forward with Deontay Foreman as, the featured back or whatever. They could even so, they could probably still add another back. But all that being said, I'm real comfortable with where the offense is right now once they add a quarterback. I'd be perfectly happy with the Panthers taking a quarterback in the first next year and then going back to 2020 and spending the whole rest of the draft on defense. I mean, I think if you combine what they have on offense right now, and by their offense is by no means some insane elite unit, but the defense is in a place where they've got stars on every level. If you start surrounding them with better and better players and give that offense a fighting chance to where if they score 24 to 27 a game and they're going to win, that's the recipe for success right there. Forget all this spread them out, what's sexy right now offense where, they're trying to score 48 points a game. Eventually you run into a good defense and you can't do that, and then you're in trouble. And that's when those teams get knocked out of the playoffs.
For instance, the 2015 Broncos, they beat us with Peyton Manning's dead corpse.
Right, 100%. I mean, that game was incredibly rigged, but that's a topic for another day. Hashtag Cotchery caught it.
And Miller batted the ball back towards the end zone, which is illegal in a fumble. You're not allowed to bat it away from people.
Right.
Yeah, I don't want to cry live on the stream, but I do agree that yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with them getting obviously getting the quarterback in there, and then their offensive line is set for the next couple of years. Dude, I think
I'm so hyped about that offensive line, dude.
It's so funny because all the games I've watched, I'll be like, all right, here it comes where we give up a big sack, and it like rarely happens. It's so weird to I keep doubting the offensive line, but they keep proving me wrong. And I'm like, when I just am not used to seeing quality offensive linemen on our team.
Iquanu has been outstanding since like week 3 or whatever. Like the first couple weeks were pretty rough, especially when he was up against Myles Garrett in week 1.
Yeah.
But he's been so good for a rookie left tackle, and he's only going to get better.
No doubt. I mean, hats off to him. I mean, he couldn't be any better for what a rookie is at this point. I mean, yeah, he's drawn a couple of dumb penalties, illegal man downfield, some holding calls, but
right.
Hell, Cam Irving will do that on a regular day. So,
was it Cam Irving who was like just got an insane amount of penalties? He would get like 3 holdings a game.
It was actually him, and I think Bozeman had some dumb calls, and I think it was what's his name?
Christensen?
Moten. Corbett. Is that what you said?
No, it was Bozeman and Moten who had some other dumb.
Oh, Moten.
Dumb. I think it was. I believe I want to say it was either Moten or Bozeman, but they ended up horse collaring somebody. Just grabbing him by the horse collar. I mean, that's dumb. And I think it was on a play that I want to say it was in that fourth quarter where they had the ball, and I think it was, I don't know who it was, but they ate up a huge chunk of yards and they come right back because of that dumb decision.
I must have been emotionally blacked out by then because I don't remember.
Or may not have even been horse collaring. It might have been he just had his arm. I knew it was somewhere up, up around the collar or around his neck. It was. It
sounds familiar, but I just can't picture it at the moment.
Yeah.
I believe you. I don't think you would lie to me.
No.
But yeah, I agree. Other than quarterback, they often say left tackle is the hardest position to learn at the NFL level, and to already be this young in your first year doing it that well, that bodes pretty well for your future. So no complaints there. He's going to be a good one.
He's going to be a good one.
They drafted him for a reason.
I remember early on, they were like, oh, he's not a good left tackle. He's an all-pro left guard. I'm like, no, you don't draft someone like 6 overall to be a left guard. That's a left tackle. You put him at left tackle and you let him learn. And that's what they did. And he's learned pretty quickly.
I've said this a million times. Here's what gets me is when Matt Rule said he has to earn.
Dude, we talked about that on here for like 2 weeks straight. Just about how much wasted time there was because Matt Rule was trying to make everyone earn their job. Same with Baker Mayfield. We all knew he was going to be the starter going into the season, and they insisted on splitting reps in training camp. And then we get out there week 1, and he looks completely lost. That was so stupid. We wasted so much time in training camp with these fake position battles. But
that and Terrace Marshall, he would often say, "Oh, he practices really bad." I'm like, "How do you practice bad? Like, do you just not show up? Like, what does that mean? Like, how do you practice bad? Like, I don't."
With Terrace Marshall, I got the sense that he was not buying his injuries, and for that he was punishing him. And that's why he had such a hard time getting on the field, is because Matt Rule felt like he was using injuries as an excuse to not practice.
Yeah, because look, I had went to training camp at the beginning of the year, and Terrace Marshall was in a weighted vest. Now, mind you, he might have been injured. I think he was. I don't know exactly what was wrong with him. But they had that man out there running with a weighted vest on. And it's 100 degrees while everyone else is practicing. Now, why isn't he over there studying stuff?
Because Matt Rule came from Baylor. He was running them to the "Don't Beat Ourselves" sign in his weighted vest. So he could earn his lunch tokens.
On top of that,
his meal plan.
I know this is old shit, but when I was at that training camp session, it was the one where Higgins did that he rolls out the red carpet and he.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Dude, I watched that. Like, I watched Matt Rule.
Matt Rule is
throw
such a bag of dicks, dude. Fuck that guy.
Dude, he threw a fit and he
God.
talked down grown men. We're talking about grown fucking men who probably make more money than he does.
Jesus
Grown men
Christ.
to fucking run.
Stupidest.
Who does that?
That was the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. He is such a little baby, bro.
Matt Rule's response would be,
God.
at least we didn't get a 15-yard penalty for that. Just don't take your helmet off.
Dude, can you imagine how quick Matt Rule would have thrown DJ Moore under the bus after that game, the game we just witnessed? First of all, we'd have never been in that position because we were lost by 24 points. But man, Steve Wilkes is such a professional coach. Every time something comes up, he does not throw anybody under the bus. He talks about learning from it, getting better, takes responsibility for everything. God, it's so refreshing to hear that man talk.
He'd have been like, DJ took his helmet off at the end, and it cost us some bad things.
Yeah. I gotta look at the tape. And decide if taking off your helmet is bad. And we gotta understand that sometimes you gotta look at the tape and you gotta go back at analytics.
And actually, but what I liked is that when, I know this is bad, but when Pinheiro shanked that kick, Steve Wilkes was on the sideline, squatted, doing this right here.
I can accept that. I can accept that. Honestly, Steve Wilkes can do whatever he wants at this point, and I don't care because he's not Matt Rule.
But here's what I like about it. He showed emotion. He's not standing over there with his mouth like this.
It's a Matt Rule special.
He's clueless.
He's got a killer dumb guy face, dude. He's got a killer dumb guy face.
I'm not gonna lie. Steve Wilkes was like, he will fuck you up.
Yeah. Matt Rule looks like he'll call the manager.
I think my favorite Matt Rule moment of all time is this past year when they went to that coaches summit and everyone was dressed out to the nines. And, Matt Rule just has,
he was dressed like a bag of Doritos.
He has that collared shirt on with the khaki pants, looking like he just left Chili's dinner 4 o'clock.
Man looked like a sofa. A button-up sofa.
Sean McVay's dressed and dressed out, and everybody's looking nice. And this man just
walked out in a pillowcase. Jesus Christ.
He literally reminds me of my 7th grade teacher.
He looks like a middle school teacher.
Exactly. That's my point. He looks just like a middle school teacher, but that motherfucker's smiling from ear to ear. He's sitting at home living it up. He got 64 mil off of Dave Tepper, and he don't give a shit.
Yo, that man needs to go find the nearest luxury car dealership and just start selling. Because evidently he can sell damn near anything if he could sell himself as a competent football coach.
A 7-year plan. You have to trust it.
7-year plan, my butthole.
Steve Wilkes said 7 years, give me 3 games.
Jesus Christ, dude. Steve Wilkes is on the 7-quarter plan. Matt Rule's on the 7-year plan.
Terrible.
I mean, honestly, God, there's even improvements in the defense ever since Snow's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're trying to do the whole Big 12 defense thing, dude. It was it was crazy.
There's no man-to-man defense in Snow's book whatsoever. It was all zone coverage. Coverage.
It would be 3rd and 15, and Brian Burns would be covering a running back in the flat.
Yeah.
What the fuck are we doing?
Zone coverage is made to, when you're up by 30 points and trying to man up 3 deep and trying to protect them from scoring. But other than that, I mean, I don't know.
I feel Matt Rule felt like we could win in a shootout every week. So that's why we just played soft zone defenses and tried to throw the ball on every play.
Well, the only person who got shot out was him.
Damn right. And every quarterback he left back there to fail.
I'm actually genuinely interested to see where he coaches next year in college because I kind of want to watch and just see like what happens, to be honest.
I feel like they'll be fine, but I also feel like he was only good in college against bad teams. Like, I don't think he ever even won a bowl game in college. And I know when they played Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, like it wasn't even really close. Like he never competed with good teams. He won 7 games. Like he got to his programs to a point where he could win 7 games a year. And looking at a college schedule, usually you're going to have like 7 bad teams on your schedule. So, I mean, it's like they were just beating who they should beat most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about that is like when they hired Rule, like I lost my fucking mind. And I'll say this is because it's not like they were taking Dabo Swinney or they weren't taking the Harbaugh guy from Michigan or they weren't taking Nick Saban, which Nick Saban has already said he doesn't want to go to the NFL again. But my point is it's Baylor. Anybody outside of that small town in Texas don't give a fuck about Baylor.
Tennessee Tech's coach was taken, man. They had to go to the next best thing.
Well, I don't know, but his resume wasn't great. It was at Temple and Baylor. Yeah. I think I could have been the coach at Temple and led them to a winning program.
To be fair to Matt Rule, both of those programs were in absolute devastating situations when he took over, and he did bring them back. So I get why a first-year owner might think it's a good idea, but he needed to put some people around him who could tell him like that he was about to make an egregious error.
But I give it to Tepper. This is his first time doing this. He's learning.
Yeah, I give him credit for admitting he made a mistake and moving on from it.
He rolled the dice on a fool. We all do it.
Yep. Yeah. 100%.
I agree. And I think my honestly, my biggest problem with it was just the contract itself. I mean, you can't give a guy 7 years, $60 million guaranteed or whatever it was. That's an unproven NFL commodity. I mean, I can understand if it was like you said, Dabo Swinney or Nick Saban, someone that has at least had championship success
anywhere
at the college level. This man hasn't even. This man's been to like 2 bowl games, and all of a sudden, hey, yeah, you're the highest paid coach in the NFL. For what? Like, it's terrible.
I think it was Dave I told the other day. I told Dave, I said, I think I messaged him or whatever, but I said, look, I think they should hire Wilkes, but for the love of God, do not give him a 7-year, $64 million contract.
Right.
Give him maybe at the most a 3-year, at the most.
Yeah. Give him a prove it deal. I'd be fine with that. I mean,
I would say like 2-3 years, something like that.
I was thinking more like 1, a real prove it deal. I don't know if a coach has ever signed a 1-year deal before, but
yeah, I don't know. I've never, maybe I'd have to look that up. That's a good question.
Because let's be real, Sean Payton isn't coming here. Jerry Jones is getting to Sean Payton.
Well, I think the problem with Sean Payton is I don't think he's going to wait until 2024 to take a job. So that would mean the Panthers would have to find a way to get him from the Saints, and they would have to offer whatever the compensation would be. And I'm assuming that would be draft picks. And I seriously doubt the Panthers are going to give away draft picks for anything at this point, even if it is a Super Bowl winning head coach. You're not going to mortgage your future. Besides, it couldn't be draft picks because then he wouldn't want to even come here because we'd have no draft picks. So I don't know what you have to trade to get Sean Payton. I don't know if you can trade money. I don't know, if they'd be willing to part with some players for a guy like Sean Payton, but the whole idea just doesn't seem very likely to me.
No.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that's very likely. But
As
with
much
that
as
being said, yeah. But with that being said, guys, pretty much coming to the conclusion of the show here. Before we get out of here, we'll give some predictions for the Panthers Bengals game. I do think this is going to be a close game. I'm gonna go with Cincinnati. I think they are going to pull it off, but I am pulling for the Panthers to win this game. I do think we're going to keep it competitive. I think this will be a little bit of a lower scoring game than last week. I would say maybe a 24-20, something like that. But I feel like I say that every game and I'm always wrong. But I don't think the Bengals are going to put up a ton of points. But I don't know if the Panthers are either. I'm going to go 24-21, something like that, the Bengals. But I do hope my guys win. I'm pulling for wins this year, believe it or not.
I'm going to go 24-20 Panthers. We're going to get after Joe Burrow. Make it happen.
I'm going to go 21-17 Panthers.
All right. Well, hey, I hope I am wrong.
Love it.
Love it. But
I think
all
it'll be
right.
close.
Yeah, well, I hope so, man. I think it will be a close game as well. I just hopefully we can get after the quarterback and we can stay up, scoring. If we can score more than 17 points, it seems to be that was the Matt Rule thing. 17 points we lose. So we got to get over that hump. So I think we can do that.
All right, man. Let's do it. Another wonderful podcast from the Primetime Carolina game.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Cam, thanks for joining us. It was good having you, man. I appreciate it. Stay tuned, guys. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, we're trying to hit 600 subs. Getting close. We can't do it without you. And we will see you guys on the next one. Keep pounding.
Keep pounding.
Peace out.